We are actually friends, but that's not the reality for everybody, nor does it have to be. When it comes to your kids, what's going on in your life, it is not necessary to overshare or share anything that's going on in your life unless you want to. Hey, beautiful. Welcome back to the Divorce Revolution. I'm your host, Amber Shaw, and thanks for being with me today. All right, you guys, I might ruffle a few feathers here today. We are going to get right into it. And today we are tackling the question, do you actually need to be friends with your ex? The reason why I want to talk a little bit about this is because, I've had a lot of co-parenting experts on this show, and I also just on social media, just by nature of what I do, I collaborate with a lot of, and I actually coach a lot of coaches who also coach on co-parenting. And I think sometimes there can be, this narrative floating around, especially like in the co-parenting culture, that it's almost like it kind of says, and it doesn't explicitly say this, but I just think you kind of like read between the lines. I think what it says is basically like, if you're not friends with your ex, then you're kind of like doing it wrong. Especially when I first got divorced, that was like the narrative that I picked up. And I don't know if I read into that wrong or what, however that looks, but that was just the messaging that I felt. And what I've learned in being divorced for 5 years, I think it's about 5 years now, is that that's actually bullshit. Okay. Because there is a big difference between co-parenting and having an amicable and respectful, or I wouldn't even say amicable. Let's just even say let's even say respectful co-parenting situation versus being friends. Because the truth is guess what? You don't need to be friends. In fact, God, I had just an amazing expert on here just a few weeks ago, Samantha Boss, and she said something about how you need to treat your ex like a coworker you don't like. I was like, God, that's so good. It's so true, because the truth is you don't need to be friends. You need to be functional. You need to be respectful, and you need to co-parent if you share kids. But being friends, girl, that's optional. Okay, that is optional. So today, I really want to spend some time talking about why friendship with your ex is not actually the gold standard. I want to talk about a little bit about what healthy co-parenting actually looks like, how to navigate some boundaries without guilt, and how to let go of the pressure to perform this peaceful breakup perfection. So let's get into it. Why is this pressure to be friends misleading? I really want to unpack a little bit, I think, where this idea even comes from. I think, and here's the thing, if you were to go back and look at some of my social media posts and things I talk about, listen, I am friends with my ex. He and I are friends. We send each other funny memes on Instagram all the time. We freaking joke about stuff. We sit next to each other at the ball game with the kids. Like, we are actually friends, but that is by choice, right? That is not out of necessity. And trust me, we have definitely gone through times in our relationship post-divorce where I did not want to be his friend, and we did not talk for a little while, right? So it is definitely the friendship piece of it is like the added bonus, but it is absolutely not a requirement to fulfill being a good co-parent. And I think where this idea of having to be friends can kind of come up with is, listen, if you are just scrolling social media and you're seeing the social media posts of, birthday dinners with kids of both parents, and, the happy family selfies, and, the co-parents who, still love each other, and just not like that can make you start to wonder. And by the way, guess what? I'll admit it. I actually have posts about all of this, because it really is my reality. But I just want to call out that that's not the reality for everybody, nor does it have to be, right? Because I think that when you see stuff like this, it's natural to be like, well, damn, what am I doing wrong? Should I be friends with my ex? Should we be getting along better? Is there something broken in me just because I don't want to go chum it up and grab a coffee with my ex? And I really want to stop you right there. And I really just want you to know that, again, friendship post-divorce is not something just because you were with somebody for so long does not mean automatically are friends or you automatically have to be friends, right? Friendship and any relationship, I think, is earned. It is built on trust and mutual respect and emotional safety. And if you are able to get to that place with your ex, it's because you both are demonstrating that for one another, right? That trust, that the boundaries, the mutual respect, emotional safety. This is the truth with friendship in any case. If those things are missing in your relationship, your ex is not trustworthy, is not giving you respect, is not giving you the emotional safety and the space you need, then you do not owe your ex a front row seat to your life. That is not a requirement at all. Again, going back to the analogy of the coworker that you don't even like, just because you work with that person, they don't need to know what's going on in your life. And I think, one of the conversations that I was having with this guest that I had on was we were just talking about how I think when you're so used to sharing everything with somebody, and especially once you get divorced, you can just have a tendency to overshare. And it's not necessary unless you want to. Okay. Especially when it comes to your kids, what's going on in your life, it is not necessary to overshare or share anything that's going on in your life unless you want to. So if friendship isn't the goal, again, remember, it can be a bonus and a choice, right? If you decide that. But if friendship isn't the goal, then what is? And as we know, if you are co-parenting, the goal is really functionality, okay? It's all about building a system that works. Healthy co-parenting, it really looks like clear communication around the kids, respect for each other's time and space and boundaries. I think it looks like, keeping the drama out of parenting decisions, right? Keeping your ego, checking your ego, keeping your feelings out of it, and really understanding that it's not about you, that you're making decisions about your kids, and really not dragging your kids into the conflict. It definitely does not include texting with your ex all the time, sharing what's going on, doing joint events that you're uncomfortable with, and also sharing your personal life to keep the peace. That's what I would define as oversharing, right? Definitely. I know there's been times in the past where I felt like I overshared to kind of keep, in my situation, not even because my ex pushed me. It was just, I felt awkward not doing it. And then eventually I just, I realized that I don't need to feel awkward about anything. I can share whatever the hell I want and I can not share whatever the hell I want. And that's okay. And I know he feels the same way too, right? But I think that really some of the most effective co-parenting relationships are really the ones that are emotionally neutral. And what I mean by that is they're not cold, they are clear, and they are respectful. And when you are clear, you are being kind, right? So I think clear equals kind, right? It's more emotionally neutral. And I think that is where a beautiful co-parenting situation can occur, is when you really just, again, keep your own personal emotions at bay and really try and operate from the best interest of the kids. So what does this look like then? If the goal is not friendship, the goal is really to focus on co-parenting. How do we then start to define co-parenting success that's not necessarily curated for Instagram? Okay, what does that actually look like? Well, some things that I really want you to remember, and actually Michelle Dempsey is another one that we had, another guest that I recently had, and actually, to be honest with you, I'm not sure if that one will have already aired by the time this one comes out, but if not, be on the lookout. Michelle Dempsey, she's incredible, and we talked about co-parenting as well. But, one of the things that we were talking about is that the number one definition of success in a co-parenting is that the kids feel safe, and I'm talking emotionally safe too. They feel heard and they feel loved. I think that a good co-parenting situation really looks like when you can handle communication like friggin' adults and you're not reactive, okay? And you're not saying things to just try and hurt each other. You're not trying to push each other's buttons, when you can actually communicate like an adult. I also think that good co-parenting looks like you really do understand and know your role and your responsibility. There is a massive shift in your role and that relationship dynamic when you go from being married to being co-parents. It is very, very different. And it can be one that can be difficult to get used to at first, especially if you were married for a long time, right? You're just used to communicating with somebody in a certain way. You're used to interacting in a certain way. And I think just recognizing that has to shift when you move to a co-parent is really, really important. I think another really key piece of co-parenting is being able to show up for your kids without compromising yourself. And the reason why I add this one into the mix is because I do think that when you are in this self-sacrificing mode for the kids, especially as a single parent, which it's very easy for us to fall into that trap, I think that is not sustainable. Right? And so I think what can happen is eventually you get burnt out, you get angry, you get resentful. And not only does that start affecting your relationship with your kids, that also will start to affect your relationship with your ex. Because listen, I don't know about you, but if I am not checking myself and really taking care of myself, man, it can be really, really easy when times feel really hard to immediately go back to that place of having anger and resentment. Like this subconscious belief, like you fucked my life up. I would not be in this position if we were not divorced. Now, obviously, that is not a rational thought. But I just want to normalize, like, if you've ever felt like that when shit was going down or shit was hard, I just want you to know that you are normal, and it is normal, but it's just something to be aware of. And so that's why I really do think that really making sure you are taking care of yourself is a key ingredient to successful co-parenting. Anything beyond that, the points that I just mentioned, things like going to shared events and being able to sit at the baseball game next to each other and go to the graduation dinner together and mutual support and having that true friendship, those are a bonus. And for some, you never get to that place, and that's okay, right? That's okay. But it's definitely not a requirement. And so really what I want to leave you with today, and I just want you to remember, like, give yourself permission to really stop focusing on things that don't feel right. So like if it feels like it does not feel right to you, like you're kind of forcing a friendship or whatever it looks like, just stop. Like, being civil is enough. Being civil is absolutely enough, and boundaries are healthy. Okay. You really don't your ex closeness just to prove to them that you've been healed, or even to prove to yourself. And I know for me in the beginning, when I was first divorced, I think I put myself in situations too soon where I was like having to be around my ex and like all of this, just various situations. I think I did it too soon. And I don't know if I was trying to prove to him that I was healed. I don't know if I was trying to prove to myself that I was healed, but I was trying so hard to normalize a situation that I wasn't quite ready for. Okay. So I just want you to give yourself permission. I want you to drop the guilt. I want you to drop the pressure. And I really want you to drop the illusion that, being friends with your ex is the gold standard. You can co-parent well. You can raise healthy, emotional, grounded kids, and you can rebuild your life. And you can do all of this without being besties with your ex. So I hope you guys, this was helpful for you guys, give you some food for thought and something to think about. And thank you for joining me, and I'll catch you on the next one.